Deion Sanders walked into his final post-game press conference of the season not as a defeated coach, but as a man carrying every bruise, every frustration, every unanswered question from a year that unraveled in front of him, ending with a fifth straight loss and a 24-14 setback to Kansas State that felt like a mirror held up to all of Colorado's flaws. A season that began with expectations of a resurgence instead ended with a 3-9 record and a locker room filled with young players still figuring out how to win, still learning how to finish, still trying to understand the cruel rhythm of college football. And yet, as Coach Prime took his seat, the exhaustion in his eyes never overshadowed the conviction in his voice. "That's all, folks," he seemed to say with the tone, not in resignation but in recognition. A final punctuation to a season of mistakes, misfires, and missed opportunities. Kansas State had won a war of attrition, one where Colorado matched them stride for stride through the first half, only to falter again in the same moments that had haunted them all year. But what Sanders delivered afterward wasn't a recap of errors. It was an honest, unfiltered dissection of a team that fought but never figured out how to turn that fight into wins. "It's not a consolation prize," Sanders said when asked about the team's effort. "They're supposed to fight, supposed to want it, supposed to give their best." Then, with a rare moment of coaching humility and admiration, he credited Kansas State, a gesture rooted in respect for a staff he deeply knows and admires. But once the acknowledgement passed, Sanders' tone sharpened. "There's no consolation prize given in these things," he said, cutting through the softness that many coaches lean on after losses. His voice tightened as he described the emotional toll of losing. "I'm not a loser. I don't handle it well. I don't cope well. I'm a thinker, though." And then he painted the internal picture. The nights where he lies awake seeing plays repeated in slow motion. The decisions he wishes he'd changed. The adjustments he should have made sooner. The moments that tilt games in either direction. "I see plays all night long," he said. "What we could have, should have, would have done. What could I have done better?" But then came the line that defined the press conference. "We won't be in this situation again. I promise you that. Because I'm not happy with nothing right now." He wasn't done. Sanders made it clear that what comes next isn't motivation. It's obligation. "I'm not motivated to get out," he said. "Getting out is what it's going to be." Colorado fans deserved more. The school deserved more. Athletic director Rick George deserved more. The players deserved more. He deserved more. And he vowed that starting tomorrow, not next week, not next month, the process of reconstruction begins. When asked about evaluation, his answer was immediate, almost startling in its certainty. "Changes. I already evaluated the program. Those changes," he explained, "will touch every layer of the team. Mentality, personnel, coaching, preparation, situational discipline. Nothing is safe. Nothing is off limits. Nothing is too sacred to overhaul. Mentality, personnel, coaching, everything," he said. "There's a certain mentality you got to have when the game is right there and you could take it either way. When you take it the wrong way all the time, that's a problem on both sides." Sanders refused to sugarcoat it. Colorado did not lose because of one group or one decision. They lost repeatedly because the same situational failures resurfaced week after week. To prove it, he described how he showed the players clips of their own collapses from earlier games. The score, the time remaining, the scenario, only to then watch the exact same patterns unfold again. "We've seen the same picture," he said, "and we did the same darn thing we always did. So we get the same old things." When pressed about how he'll change the team's mentality, he didn't hesitate. "You don't develop mentality, you select mentality," he said. "You pick mentality." It was a boxing metaphor, a Sanders classic, two fighters in a ring, and you choose the one with the killer instinct. That's how he'll be selecting players moving forward. Not just talent, not just measurables, mentality. The questions turned toward his staff and whether too much NFL experience had influenced Colorado's identity, a criticism Sanders has heard repeatedly. He smiled, chided the reporter for saving the question for last, then answered plainly, "I like a blend. Yes, Colorado has coaches with NFL backgrounds, but they also have college specialists. The issue isn't league experience, it's the overall mix, and Sanders insists the balance is there. And despite everything, despite the losing streak, despite the frustration, Sanders said there were positives to take forward. Not enough to overshadow the losses, but enough to recognize growth. Yeah, it's a lot," he said. "A tremendous amount." Then he clarified. This was a 3-win team that, with 5 minutes left in several games, had opportunities to win again. His voice softened for a moment. Not with satisfaction, but with understanding of how close the program came to turning the corner. But ultimately, he knows close doesn't matter. At the conclusion of the game, the score does not dictate it, but you had an opportunity to win. That opportunity must one day turn into results. And when asked what he learned from this season, Sanders delivered one of his most introspective answers of the year. "You don't want to say you're happy that you're getting your butt kicked," he said, "but you're happy with what you're seeing throughout the process." He talked about the small whispers, subtle signs of growth that only coaches notice, mid-game details that reveal discipline or preparation. He talked about knowing which players can handle pressure and which ones shrink from it. He talked about learning which coaches understand situational football and which ones don't. The lessons weren't glamorous, he admitted, and he didn't want to learn them this way, but he learned them. "It's not just about wins and losses," he said. "It's about young men. It's about coaches. It's about situational football. It's about life." Then he said the words every Colorado fan needed. "I'm thankful these guys fought today. They didn't shut it down." Finally came the closing statement. One that will be replayed for years, one that belongs on murals and recruiting graphics, one that captured everything Deion Sanders believes about himself, about leadership, and about the road ahead. "If anybody's built to reconcile and get this back on course, it's me," he said, his eyes locked forward. "And I will do it if it's the last thing I do on earth. Trust me when I tell you, this was the Last Supper. God bless." It was dramatic, theatrical, unmistakably Sanders. But behind the performance was truth. He is not running from this season. He is not hiding behind excuses. He is not pointing fingers. He is standing in the center of the storm, taking every blow, and promising Colorado that next year will not look like this one. And that is why, even after a painful 3-9 campaign, his words landed not like an epitaph but like a declaration. The season may be over, but the fight, the rebuild, the transformation, the next era begins now.